Hello, everyone. This is Don Takis. This podcast is the point where we talk all things wedding planning in the city of Pittsburgh and beyond. And I have an incredibly talented wedding photographer with me today. We're going to talk about the do's, the don'ts, how she makes the magic happen. Kaitlyn, say hello to everyone in the Pittsburgh Brides community.
Hello, it's so nice to be here.
And you are, for our guests that are listening, Kaitlyn Logan of Kaitlyn Logan Photography. And you can find her on pittsburghbrides.com. And she is one of the photographers that is under our umbrella that when she shares galleries with me, she takes my breath away. Like, you really pull things that I'm just like so gorgeous. And you have this way of just making the couples look so natural and unstaged. So tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into photography.
So that's an interesting story actually. I've been doing it for like 7 years now, 5 years as far as weddings go. Well, 6, but we don't count the first year because that was, practiced almost. But it's been about 5 years full time. I was actually in a pretty unhealthy relationship. I just needed to find a way to express myself and become more than just a mother. And along the way, I kind of found a little bit more and gained financial freedom. And I was able to actually get myself out of a really bad position that I'm grateful for every day.
Wow. I did not know that part of your story.
Yeah.
I had a similar story
Yeah.
at my young years with a man that I had to get away from, and I started my business. So, yeah, there is empowerment in that, and knowing that you can claim your life and the life that you want, and that creativity is food for the soul, right? I
Yes.
always tell my friends, I was like, I can't imagine my world without a creative aspect because it is the thing that makes me feel good inside.
Yep.
And I know that you have that. I mean, like, a lot of people can go to school and learn how to do photography or play guitar or any artistic element, but it's something that you have to have that natural gift inside, and you are
Yeah.
one of the photographers that have that, and you've cultivated that through the years. So tell me, you started doing photography, obviously, you didn't start off with wedding photography.
No.
Where did you start and when did you take the dive?
So I just kind of started doing small family sessions, taking pictures of my kids here and there, just as a way to express myself and honestly get out of the house. And then eventually it kind of worked its way into a couple friends asking me to do engagement photos. And then I was second shooting for a little while. And I loved that. And I kind of learned that the only thing I didn't like about second shooting was that I was showing up on these people's wedding day and had no clue anything about their story or
Yeah,
having any actual form, like kind of formed a connection already.
right.
I was just there as help. So it kind of left a lot to be desired for me. And I, I love. So that's like my favorite thing to document. And then I just started diving head first after I second shot for a while. And it's just kind of blown up over the years.
Supply and demand, baby. You're in big
Yeah.
demand. You're in big
Yeah.
demand. So tell me about what makes you different because let's face it, Pittsburgh has thousands of photographers,
Yes.
and not all, I would say, classify as professional photographers. There's a lot of newbies on the
Yeah.
market, people that wanna be photographers, and we don't begrudge anyone that because everybody was new at
Yeah.
one
We all
point,
start.
right? Right, exactly. But tell me what makes you unique and different from most wedding photographers. What's some of the bullet points that makes Kaitlyn Logan Photography?
There's a few things. I
Okay.
think for me, it's not really, and it's never really been just about the money. So when I do this, I do it because I actually enjoy my job. And honestly, my husband's my second shooter. So us shooting weddings together, it's being around love nonstop. And it's just kind of, it's nice to be in that place all the time. So that's, I guess, one point. As far as the rest go, I would say I'm very inclusive in the sense that each one of my couples, no matter where they're getting married, what time of year, what their relationship looks like, what they look like, any of that, I try to still deliver the same product. It's not ever going to look the same because, if somebody's getting married in a white church and then somebody's getting married in a fire hall, they're going to be different vibes. But as far as the quality of photo and how many photos they get back and how much attention to detail I pay, I try to make it the same experience for everyone. And that's really important to me, which is why I only take on 20 weddings no matter where they're at. I just
Wow.
time wise, I want to be able to give everybody the amount of time they deserve. I don't really think people should be waiting 6 business weeks for an email response. So I try to limit myself so that, I know what I'm capable of and how I can provide the best. And that's a key point for me.
You take a boutique approach to it.
Y- yeah.
Yeah, a little more undivided
Yes.
attention to every couple, and that starts how? So, obviously, I've been around the camera all of my life. I was doing cataloging in my 20s when I owned a swimsuit factory. I remember being on the ground concrete, and we're at a swimming pool with this beautiful fountain, and the photographer hands me his camera, and I'm looking up at the model, and I'm like, "Yeah, I like everything I see." He's like, "Oh, I can drop the f-stop and everything." I'm not a photographer, but I've
Right.
always been around it. So, and some things that I've learned through the years is it does take a certain personality type or the willingness to connect with the subject in a way that you can bring out their spirit and bring out the best in them. And I think that you
Yes.
have to figure that out early on if you
Yes.
have that ability to do that with them. So how does that work for you in your workflow?
So for me, it kind of begins through email. That initial inquiry, I'm not the type of person you're ever going to get like an automated response from. I actually respond to all of my own emails. And I do it in a way where if they're telling me about their venue and I love their venue, I'm going to say, "Oh my gosh, I love shooting there." Or, I try to make it a more personable experience versus just cookie cutter. And then from there, all of my wedding collections come with an engagement session. And I do try to push that even if a couple doesn't really want to do an engagement session
Sure.
because it can familiarize us with each other.
Yeah.
It lets them see how I shoot, the prompts, the poses. When I deliver that gallery, they can then, look at the poses that we did. And if there's a certain facial expression that they don't like, they can let me know that and we'll just avoid it for the wedding day. So I like to do things that way just so that, they're kind of getting a custom experience versus just, what they do for everyone. Everybody has different needs.
Sure. And a lot of people are very comfortable on the camera, like if they're doing their selfies for Instagram,
Yes.
because they have their filters, they know the right angle, they know everything. And then you
Yes.
put a professional photographer in front of them and they're like deer in headlights,
Yes.
right? Like
Yep.
that, and so as a professional, you have to learn how to navigate that. And that's part of the engagement process. And I like that you encourage your couples to do it, whether they
Yes.
feel that it has value or not, because I think that's it's a test drive. They need to know.
Yes.
Gotta make
Yes.
sure the
It's
vehicle
extremely important.
it's extremely important. And so and I like what you said about you don't have an auto reply on your email because that's showing that you do wanna get to know them a little bit. You do wanna hear their love story because you're basically, you know, documenting that love story.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What are, some of the conversations that you have by email with obviously, you're not saying, "Yes, I'm free, I'm booked, you can book me," right? Just because you wanna get another booking on the calendar.
No. Yes. So for me, that initial inquiry email, whenever they send, I have a pretty extensive form that they fill out. It'll ask what their venue is, what their date is. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Do you have any other vendors booked? So that gives me kind of little peek into their day. It even asks, I believe, like, what are you most excited about?
Yeah,
And that's always fun for me to read that response because it's different for everybody. Sometimes
yeah,
it's, oh, I can't wait to party. Sometimes it's, I just can't wait to walk down the aisle to the
yeah,
love of my life. And I love those responses because they're all relatable. So it's easy for me to read an inquiry form and know pretty much right off the bat whether I'm going to get along with somebody or not. And not even just get along. It's easy to get along with people, but I like to make sure that personalities are going to mesh.
yeah.
My website, that's why I am so like, this is how I am on my website. Like, I'm somebody who I'm as professional as you have to be without being, I guess,
Stuffy?
yeah. I
Mhm.
guess I'd like to have more of a personal connection with each person. So when they do send that initial inquiry, it gives me a peek and then I'll respond and say like, "Oh, I am still available for your
Yeah.
day. Here's packages, pricing." And then I actually send like 10 galleries from both engagement and weddings just so they can see what to expect from me from start to finish so that they know. And then if they like what they see, then we'll have a deeper conversation, maybe set up a Zoom call if they want to do that. And then we kind of, along the way, we talk pretty often. Most
I
of my
know
clients,
you like to talk and like to chat with your
yes,
brides. I know you
I
help
do.
them plan too. I've had a couple conversations with some of your former brides and that you become like their advocate and their go-to person and they come to you and they're like,
Yeah.
"I'm not liking what's happening with this cake that I'm ordering. I'm getting some pushback." And you're like, "Well, maybe you should try this." So I think you get a little bit more involved with each
Yeah.
couple as you get to know them than you're letting on
Yes.
in this podcast. And I think that's one of the things that makes you special because
No, I do. I agree. A lot of my friends actually, and I just messed up because it's true. A lot of them are friends now.
yeah,
A lot of my clients do quickly become friends. And it's just because I think I love weddings so much that, like, when my couples do meet with me and they do talk to me, they'll be like, "Oh, do you want to see my dress?" And I'm not the type of vendor that's like, "Yeah, show me." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yeah." And I genuinely want to see it because I
yeah.
love weddings and I love talking about weddings and
Mm.
getting to know people it just, I don't know, everybody's story is so different. So it's nice to get to know people, and a lot of the people who have become friends are, dare I say, more loyal friends than the ones that I have had since I was in kindergarten. So it's nice that I get to branch out and form these connections with people. And it is one of those things that I think sticks out. It's not for everybody. Some people are like, "Oh, I don't like that approach." And that's why it is all over my website so that
Yeah.
they're well aware. I am very, very bubbly and I love to have conversations with people. So that's why I try to reflect that in everything.
Yeah, but I also hear that you get shit done too.
Yeah,
Like,
I can be a
you don't mess around. Like, you
no.
you make sure that you execute and you do it in a way that doesn't offend anyone. You're not bossy, you're not pushy, you're not berating or belittling. And I have heard that firsthand from brides that, like, you have a really good way of balancing saying, "Hey, guys, we have 10 minutes. We gotta do this, and then you guys can y'all drink
Yes.
all you want, but
And
let's
that's
get this
exactly what it
done."
is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that kind of comes from, there's a time and a place. I can't wait to see you on that dance floor. I can't wait to have my camera, you know, right there capturing all of it. But when we're doing like portraits and we're on a time crunch, we have to treat it appropriately, and a lot of times wedding parties, especially, they can get a little out of hand.
A
I'm
little?
not coming for anybody, but typically it's the men's side. So I just kind of whip out my mom voice and I'm like, "Listen, I love to yell at
Yeah,
men." And like, it's just a joke. It's a joke. I will not actually yell
yeah.
at anybody. But yeah, it does. It gets the point across. Or like, I'll point at somebody and be like, "So you're going to be the problem child today." And it just turns into a joke.
It becomes a
So
laugh. Yeah, and then
yes, yes,
it gets everyone's attention, right? It gets everyone's
yes,
attention. I know when I'm in the photo booth, like, one of our biggest problems is, getting people to look at the camera because it's behind the glass or they just don't know where to look. They're looking at
yeah,
animation, which it baffles me sometimes. But I'll have, like, a whole group of 12 people trying to get a photo, and there's one girl that's just like I'm like, "Hey, hot brunette." And she's like, "Me?" I'm like, "Yes, you. Look at the camera." Something same thing, right?
yeah,
Making a joke of it, getting their attention and saying, "All right, let's do this. Let's
yes,
make sure that we knock this
yes,
out so that you guys can go drink some more and come back and have another round with me."
yes,
And I think this is probably your signature in what you do. Like, your signature as Kaitlyn Logan Photography is that you do get comfortable with your couples. You
Yes.
do make sure that you have a relationship with them. You do make everyone feel comfortable on event day, even if you have to be a little bit of a mom,
Yeah.
as you stated, so that you can execute and still deliver what you promised to the couple, even while everyone's in party mode.
Yes.
And it gets you to the end game for the couple, which is the amazing photos, and we're gonna be popping some of Kaitlyn's favorite photos in here. I know that I did an interview with Kayla Trout, and
Yeah.
the photos from that wedding just absolutely breathtaking, and I'm gonna share some of those, but before I do, I wanna just say that I think that is your signature statement, like, your signature profile as a photographer. You're not just bringing in a bag of photography equipment and it's in the corner and you can't wait to get out of there. Like, it's just
Yeah.
another job to you. Like, you really put your heart into it. And you know how I know this too, even though we've never worked together, is that you'll message me and be like, Dawn, look at this gallery. And
Yeah.
on a Sunday,
Yes.
people, she's
Yep.
sending me galleries at like 10 a.m. in the morning. And we just, had weddings on Saturday. And I'm like, when was this wedding? She's like, yesterday. She's already working galleries and getting them ready. And I'm looking at,
Yeah.
and I'm just, you definitely always like have the ability to take my breath away when I see your galleries. You're so talented. And tell me why you come out of the gate like that. Like I know, but I want the people that are listening or watching this podcast to know. What is it that makes you tick into that?
You mean as far as like delivering the galleries and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a big thing for me is when I got married, I was like ready to shout it from the rooftops. So, I knew one of the very first things that I would want to do is, hop on social media and be like, oh, look, this is my husband.
Right.
And so that's something for me. That was a very important thing. Like, I'm like, do I get sneak peeks? A lot of photographers, I mean, our turnaround times, especially during busy seasons, they can range anywhere from like 4 to 12 weeks and sometimes even longer. My standard is typically about 6 to 8 weeks. I try not to take that long, but fall, it happens. And so I try to send a sneak peek gallery. I think I'm contracted for 20, but I can't tell you the last time that I sent anybody less than like 40 to 60, sometimes even 100
Yeah.
sneak peeks. And it only varies based on how exhausted I am the next day.
Yeah.
But I try to make them pretty even. So if I don't get all of the ones out that I want to, sometimes on a Monday, I'm like popping a few more in. And then, they get their full gallery after those 6 to 8 weeks. And it's nice because it gives them something to sit on and something so that they're not like just sitting there the whole time
Right.
waiting to see something from their wedding.
Or feeling like they're too anxious to like respond to you because they
Yes.
don't want to intrude because they know that you
Yes.
work the wedding. And so, but they're dying. Like,
Yes.
I know all of my brides, like they wake up Sunday morning and they're like, what just happened? Like they want as much content as they can possibly get.
Yes.
And the fact that you do that for them and get that to them so soon. And we're talking about, Kaitlyn Logan quality photos. These are not photos from no disrespect to a social media person
No.
or people with their iPhones, but they're getting photos that they can make their cover photo on their Facebook or Instagram page if they want. And that's a little gift that you give them. That's it. That's it. That's the going the extra mile thing. And that comes from a passion for involvement. And
Yes.
it's not just that just underscores what you said earlier, that this is not about money.
No.
Money is how you're compensated for your time, but it's the passion for involvement that makes you go the extra mile and do the things that you do for your clients that choose to hire you and you choose to celebrate their love story. It's an
Yeah.
equal relationship, right?
Yes. Now, it's amazing that I've been able to turn this into a full-time job because I get to do it all the time. But when I first started doing this, it was simply because it's what I love to do. And if there ever comes a day when that love stops, I'm in the wrong business. So I'm not the type of photographer who's ever going to take 42 weddings on a year or,
Yeah.
start outsourcing. Not that I'm saying that people shouldn't do that. If this is
Yeah.
how they survive, you do what you have to. It
Right.
just doesn't, for me personally, that's super important to me is I want to be the one who, if my couples are hiring me, they're hiring me. I want to be the one who's having the communication and doing the editing. And I want to have total control of their experience because it has my name on it.
Yeah. And I'm gonna share with you my philosophy on that statement as well, is that you know that you're at the top of your game when you have that privilege. Like, I do turn away clients and say, "I'm sorry, I can't do your event."
Yeah.
Even though it's not about money, it's about all the things that we talked about, a passion for involvement, and that I wanna make sure to allocate the proper time to my clients, and, I wanna love what I do. One of the
Yes.
things we do parties, we do a lot of entertainment with everything that we do under our umbrella, and I love, going to a party, closing my eyes, and listening to everybody laughing and having a good time, and I'm like, "Killed it, nailed it,"
Yes.
and like, I need that adrenaline and dopamine to get me to the next one, right? Like, the
Right.
money's like, okay, it pays the bills, like, but
Yeah.
I love when the client messages me the next morning and says, "Oh my god, I've had 100 messages from people about
Yes.
how much fun they had at the party last night," because for me personally, my passion is, life goes by really fast and we don't have enough moments with each other where we
No.
put down our cell phone and just enjoy each other and spend time together. And I want to cultivate that as much as I possibly can in the most relaxed and inviting environment. But back to you. I think that's your secret sauce. That's your signature, that you truly have that passion for involvement. You have a creative soul. You have a need to express that creative soul. You used your creative soul to overcome difficulties in your
Yes.
life. And so that's really special. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand the power in that. I do. I also want to tap a little bit on, when you're booking a photographer for a wedding and there's couples out there and they're shopping, and it can be you post in one of these groups and 150 people can reply and they're all over the place. And as we stated earlier, every photographer or new photographer has the right to start this journey. But what are some of the things, if you were to be mentoring a relative that's maybe in North Carolina and she's looking for a photographer and you can't help her, what are some things that you would be saying? Like, what do you need to look for before you pull the trigger and sign a contract or make a deposit?
So there's a lot,
It's
and
okay, we have time.
some people might not like the things I have to say. I think a few of the biggest things are, one, insurance. That's a
Yeah,
big one. I know a lot of people um, who work in the industry who do not have the coverage that they would need if something happened. And that is, it's very scary to me coming
yeah,
from a business standpoint,
yeah,
because I mean, not even just a business standpoint. I was a client once too, and anything can happen. And it's a risk. As far as like equipment goes, I feel like people need to be very aware of who they're hiring and what they're actually bringing. Equipment does not bring, like, it's not what brings the talent to the wedding day, but certain things can save you. So, dual card slots and a camera, countless batteries, spare equipment, backup lenses, multiple SD cards. There's a million and one things that you need to plan for when we're talking about a wedding day. And I know so many people who have shot weddings with cameras that don't have dual card slots. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if that card goes corrupt, like,
yeah,
it's a very scary thing. So I would say for sure asking about their equipment, and not in a way that like, oh, do you have the best of the best when it comes to lenses, but
sure,
do you have additional equipment? Do you have the ability to make sure my wedding photos are protected? If something happens, do you have the coverage to the insurance, the backing that you're going to need to, compensate me or whoever? It all comes down to protection in that aspect. But I also believe that, each person inquiring with a photographer needs to do a deep dive into their portfolio, not just going on their website and looking at 10 of their best images that they have on a portfolio page. They need to be saying, do you have full galleries from, rainy days or sunny days, or
right,
have you worked at my venue? And they need to look at several different scenarios from different wedding galleries and look from start to finish to see what you're getting. And same thing with engagement, because that's also a milestone that you're documenting if it
sure,
comes with your package. So they need to be looking at that for, to make sure they like the style and the quality and everything else, but also just because that's the only way that a photographer can guarantee that they even like their style. It's very easy to go on Instagram and post a really pretty photo, but it's what can you deliver to clients no matter what? You're not always going to have perfect lighting outside. It's not always going to be a bright and beautiful day.
sure.
Wedding days happen, and and it's raining. So you have to have the ability to work around it.
And AI and filters have really made the entire scope of what you're shopping
Yes.
disingenuous.
Yes. AI is one of those things, as photographers, you can have a love hate with it. Sometimes if I'm just trying to edit a leaf out of the grass and I just go in and do, remove the leaf, it works. But, when we're talking about doing any heavy editing or, doing something of importance, I mean, it'll put a duck in your hand, and that's not a joke. I mean,
Yeah.
I tried it for fun the one day and it was a giraffe.
Right.
So it's random. And I feel like as the photographer, you need to have control of what's going on with your images because that's the product that you're putting out to clients. So I feel like when we're talking about clients, that was actually a question I did get pretty recently too, within the last month. When they booked me, they actually asked me, do you do your own editing or do you outsource or use AI? And I'm like, I actually do my own editing. Like I don't, and this is,
Yeah.
I'm not faulting anybody who does use AI. If that's what works for their business, it works for their
Sure.
business. I have tried, it does not work for mine. So, but I told her that, I do all of my own editing just because of the amount of weddings that I do take on. And I have that ability to have the control with my photos. So I want to make sure I'm producing the same quality for each couple.
And every photographer has their own workflow.
Yes.
So this is just your signature and how you do your workflow. And everyone has a different interpretation and what they want their end game to look like. I know that there's one other aspect of all this that when they book Kaitlyn Logan, who do they get?
Well, they get me. But I mean, like I said, my husband's also my second shooter. So
Right.
anytime we show up, for like an engagement session and he's off of work because he's a full-time diesel mechanic. We've talked about that before. He's only off on the weekends and comes to work with me. So when I have an engagement session on the weekends and he's able to make it, it's really nice because I do take him with me and he can also, form that connection instead of, the traditional second shooter experience, just showing up on the wedding day and just
Correct.
going into, the spouse's room like, oh, hi, what's up? So that's nice. I mean, it doesn't always happen. I would say about 90% of the time Scott's able to go. And that's one of my favorite things is that he gets to form the connection with, whoever he's going to be with. And then I also get to form that connection. So it's really nice.
One of my points being there that when you're shopping for photographers, you gave them some really good things to ask for: the insurance, the
Yes.
galleries, what kind of equipment do you use? Do you have a contingency plan or a backup plan with your equipment in case something should fail? But also, who's shooting my day? Like, if I'm booking Kaitlyn Logan photography, am I getting Kaitlyn Logan? And then
Yes.
who is the second shooter? Or if I booking XYZ company, like, I know who my photographer is? Will I
Yeah.
have a conversation with my photographer in person before the day? I think that's a big, like, little hiccup in the industry
Yes.
that photographers are not really prepared to, what's the word I'm looking for? To expand their business in a way that protects the main signature or brand of the business.
Yes.
And then they start basically contracting out other photographers so that if they've booked for a wedding day and then another booking comes in and they want that booking and they want the money and they want the business, they start hiring out other photographers. I think it's a really important question to ask, who's my photographer?
Yes.
Right? Like, you want to
Yes.
know.
Yeah. And that is the one thing when it comes to me, at least, I struggled with even with second shooters. I'm type A. So
Oh,
I know, I like to have control. So like a lot of times, even when my second shooters were doing something, I would go back and redo it. And I'm still guilty of that
yeah.
sometimes. I'm not going to lie, but it's very important for me. Like I could never just hand somebody equipment and be like, here you go shoot this wedding. It works for some people. It doesn't work for me. And when I was shopping for my own vendors, that was something that was important to me was I need to know that whoever is showing up cares about not only their business, but cares about me.
Yeah.
And that's something with the subcontracting companies, I feel especially, it can kind of get tricky because you don't always know who's going to be at your wedding day. And then if something happens like last minute, there's no actual connection. So they don't feel that, I guess, they don't feel like they have to be there because there's always going to be somebody else who will step in. Versus with me, I mean, I could probably break my leg on a Friday and then I would just hire somebody to
Sure.
go with me.
Right.
So, and that's just not because, I'm not willing to, I guess, let somebody help, but just again, it's important to me to be there. And I know so many other people who are the same way. It's just every business is different.
It's a passion for involvement. You love
Yes.
what you do, and
Yes.
you never work a day in your life if you love what you do for a living, and you've found that. You're one of the lucky people that have
Yeah.
found that. You're not a photographer that's going to a wedding going, "Oh gosh, I can't wait for this to be over, like, so I can pack up and
No.
leave," or what's on the menu for dinner? What are we gonna eat? "Oh, I don't like this," right? They're so preoccupied with other things as oppo and I see it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it out. I see it. I see it all the time. I see photographers show up dressed in something that I wouldn't wear to an engagement party, let alone a wedding, and it's surprising to me, and so it's refreshing when I meet talent that, they make sure to check all those boxes, not just for themselves, but for their couples. Like, you're making sure that, you're putting their needs first, and I know we've had a conversation about protecting their content after the wedding because this has become a hot topic in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We've had a couple photographers, videographers take the money and run and go MIA, and there were like 50 couples that did not get their footage from a videographer. And we had a conversation about this. You do have a contingency plan in
Yes.
place in the event of God only knows what happens if you're incapacitated for any reason or cannot complete the
Yes.
contract. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you've incorporated that?
Yes. Well, the why is because I have anxiety. Bad. Every everything that could ever happen to me constantly runs through my head. And that was something with running my own business. It's not like I just clock in and clock out. These are people's images from their wedding day. An entire wedding day cannot be redone. So when we're talking about protecting somebody's images. I'm somebody who I have countless external hard drives and I come home from a wedding day and I back those images up immediately. I have fire safe everything because I'm a little paranoid. So it
Yeah,
works better for me to be extra safe. Now, if something were to ever happen to me that, knock on wood, and we
right,
never want anything to ever happen,
right.
but I do have it set up so that my husband has access to all of those files. And he doesn't do any editing. Again, I control everything, but he does have access to all of the external hard drives, all of the SD cards, everything that he would need. I do already have outsourcers picked out, like outsource editors picked out, in which case they would then edit those images for my couples and they would then receive those raws.
So
Because
you're
if they
covering
didn't,
their ass.
yes,
You're covering their ass, which is really
yeah,
important because I think a
yes,
lot of times in contracts can be so heavy, one-sided, photographer, "I want this, I need this, I wanna be
yes,
paid the day of the wedding." But then there's this period of time where they're waiting for their content, and in some cases, that period of time has been abused by photographers, not just in Pittsburgh, but just globally across the
yes,
board, and I think it's a lot because a lot of people get into the business, they don't really realize how much work is involved in being a photographer, that it is a full-time job to be a wedding photographer,
yes,
and they become overwhelmed and they can't keep up with their galleries and their editing and then things get backed up. I do think it's fair for couples to ask for what if?
yeah,
What if? What's the contingency plan? God forbid anything happened to you. God forbid, that you're incapacitated and you can't complete my galleries. What is that date? Can you give me a
yes,
date that a firm date I'm going to have my content by? And if I don't have that content by, what is the contingency plan? And that's fair because contracts should be what? They should be
yes,
balanced.
yes,
It's a scale. It should be fair for them, fair for you. I know there's a lot of photographers out there that, they're kind of a little bit selfish when they're shooting. They're shooting more for themselves, for content for Instagram or their website. I know this is a defining point for you that that's really important to you. And how do you define that? Like, how do you really zero in on those couples and make it about them?
right. So I think, and that kind of goes back to when I send all those galleries so that people can look at them and see, this is what I get for getting ready and, the ceremony and then portraits. And they can kind of look through several different galleries and see what I typically deliver. As an artist, you're always going to want to show off your art. And that
Mhm.
is completely fine. I mean, that's what it's all about. But we still have a job to do and we have a wedding day to capture. So we're not talking about controlled environments. We're talking about a wedding day.
Right.
And on a wedding day, anything can go wrong. Timelines can get messed up, weather can change, maybe somebody's having a meltdown. You have to be able to adapt to that. I think for me personally, I have standard images that I get for each and every wedding. And then I will take what I call like a wish list or like an inspiration board. And they can send me, the general vibe of what they're wanting. If there's like a few specific, photos that they want to kind of reenact, like we'll do those. But as a whole, when people look through my galleries, I want them to know that's the product they're going to receive. So that's what I prioritize. If we have time for, crazy creative freedom, I'm going to make sure that we utilize that.
Yeah.
But it's not often on a wedding day that people have very much time for me to really branch out. Like I'll be able to do some fun poses or take them
Mhm.
to a cool new location. But for me personally, I'm there to capture their day. And their day is what's going to get me the most likes on Instagram.
Sure.
Their day is them being in the moment and me capturing the little details of their day in a way that is both time effective and still getting the point across. So if I have to pick and choose, I'm always going to choose what the client deserves over what I want.
Bam. Winner on that one. And that leads me into my next question. I know that you have photographed many diverse weddings.
Yes.
And you have, people of all skin tones, colors, size, shapes, and like I said earlier, when we're taking selfies for Instagram, we know our best angle, we know everything. How do you, and I know this is a skill set that a lot of photographers acquire in time, but how do you make those modifications and adjustments that you make them feel empowered when you're behind the lens?
Right. So I actually try to be pretty upfront with my clients and ask them, do you have any insecurities that I should know about? Do you have any favorite facial expressions? Stuff like that. But then on the day of their engagement session, and this is why I push it so hard, I will do just about every pose I can think of. We'll switch locations, maybe switch outfits to see how you feel in, different outfits. And I'll just do a variety of everything that I typically do. And that way, when they get that gallery back, they can tell me, I didn't like that serious face. I don't like the ones where we're looking at the camera and smiling. I like the ones where you're
Yeah.
giving us prompts and we have to interact with each other. It helps me get to know them better. It helps me know what to provide on a wedding day because some people, looking at myself in the mirror right now, I'm like, oh, okay, we could go back in, So
Yeah.
we all have insecurities. And that to me, everything, it all boils down to what was important to me on a wedding day because it's my business. So
Yeah.
the way I run my business is kind of what I looked for when I was
What your
searching.
expectations were. Yeah.
Yes. And that was a question that I had asked every single photographer that I inquired with. Me and Scott, we're not tiny people. So I was like, can I see posing from plus size couples?
Yeah.
And they would sometimes send me like 3 or 4 images. And I'm like, maybe not the one for me. Because I want to
Yeah.
see a whole gallery. I want to see maybe I'm not going to have him lifting me up in the air, but I want to see that I'm still going to get some variety. And it's important to have, that peace of mind and walk in knowing that you're still going to get beautiful images and not just 1 or 2, but, be able to get the same beautiful images that everybody else is going to get without any physical or anything. Like there should be no differences that change the product that you're getting.
Sure.
Now, of course, outfit choices and stuff like that, we have very little control on what people choose to wear.
Yeah.
But as far as like physical appearance or, just even the dynamic of a couple, like you should be able to, if that couple has a more serious relationship, kind of incorporate that into the session. Or if they're super
Sure.
lighthearted and, they want those fun, flirty images, that's kind of what I strive to do. And that's why the engagement session gives me a peek into who they are as a couple.
Yeah, and it's a win-win all the way around for the
Yes.
couple, for you, for the end result, the end game, and
Yes.
I can appreciate that because so when you're shopping for a photographer, maybe you should ask your photographer to share with you galleries of people that look like you.
Yes.
If you're plus size and curvy, or if you have darker skin, if
Yes.
you're really thin, I've seen a lot of, like, really tiny thin brides, and they just kinda melt away in the photos when they're surrounded with other people, so I think that's a really good tip for our couples that are watching today. Because I've been around the camera, I do understand, like, what it takes for a talented photographer to be able to capture the spirit. Because 'cause you're not just taking a photo of someone, you're trying to capture their spirit, and
Yes.
I can have 5 different photographers take my photo or take anyone's photo, and there's one photographer that's able to capture my true spirit, my inner you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their smile, whether it's impish or serious or whatever, and that comes from communication, and that communication can be verbal, it can be nonverbal, it can be a sense of comfort that you have
Yeah.
with someone, and I think that's what's so captivating about your photos. Whenever I look at your photos, I can see how much those couples, like, love being there, being in that moment, and how comfortable that they are with you. You could see it in every gallery that you've ever sent me. And that says so much more than anything that you've said in this podcast. I mean, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like, the proof is in the pictures. And if they go look at the pictures, you'll see this. And she's not paying me for this podcast. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Like, the proof is in the pictures. And if you go see that, and the lovely reviews. Like, there's so many brides that if somebody asks for a photographer, they're shouting you out in the group and recommending you, or they're messaging me saying, "I love Kaitlyn too." Like, so you have a fan base of your own. I'm so proud of you pulling yourself out of a bad situation, finding your inner creative self and creating a brand and doing what you do and offering your gift. And it's a gift. It's not a service. You're offering your gift to the world, and I know you won't brag about yourself, so I just did.
Yeah, yeah, that's a struggle. You are one of my favorite hype girls, though. I do. I love you dearly,
Oh,
but
thank you.
I do not like to talk about myself at all. I get incredibly awkward. So, I think I'm just in the business of, like, I want to know about everybody else, that the idea of talking about myself in that way, I'm like, so but no, I do appreciate it. I it means a lot to me that you see that, because when I'm sitting here on a Sunday and I'm so tired, sometimes I just want to go back to bed. But I'm like, no, I know these couples are going to be waiting for this preview gallery, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it, because when my kids come home, I'm not going to get a minute to myself. So it means the world to me that other people do see the effort that I put in.
They definitely see it. And with that, I'm gonna say that you can find Kaitlyn Logan Photography on pittsburghbrides.com. Your website is also kaitlynloganphotography.com, is that correct? Off the top of
It's
my head, I
actually
don't
just
know.
Yeah, it's actually just kaitlynlogan.com.
Okay. And so that you can inquire for services there. I know your starting point price-wise for a day of photography. Do you wanna share that? It's 2025, by the way, if you're listening
Yes.
or watching.
So right now it starts at 3,000. Pricing is always subject to change, especially at the beginning of
Sure.
the new year, but it does start at 3.
And you always have a second shooter, your husband?
Always?
Always, that's included. And so if you'd like to have a consultation, you can find her at kaitlynlogan.com, or you can go to Pittsburgh Brides and message her from there. Kaitlyn, and or if you just have any questions, she loves to help our brides. She helps a lot of our brides with things that are not even photography. You're a great part of our community, and I thank you for being with us today and always and being a part of our community. I will always continue to be one of your biggest fans. I really appreciate you doing this podcast with me.
Of course. It was fun.
All right, dear. Everyone, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.